A brutal revenge of a pregnant wife, trapped in the glittering web of a billionaire's betrayal. A massive deception was about to explode. A pregnant wife discovers her billionaire husband buying a breathtaking diamond necklace, not for her, but for his secret lover. What follows is a revenge so ruthless it would shake the core of London's elite. In a storm of luxury and lies, a tragic discovery ignites a path of fiery vengeance. Before diving into this saga of betrayal and karma, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you believe betrayal deserves punishment, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second. Clara Reed, 7 months pregnant and still believing she was living her fairy tale, stumbled upon an email that shattered her world, a receipt for a dazzling diamond necklace her wealthy husband, Julian Vance, had ordered. But it wasn't for her. It was for another woman. A mistress. Her heart thundered with rage and disbelief, every beat echoing with betrayal. Yet beneath the heartbreak, something darker sparked. Resolve. What if this wasn't the end of her story, but the beginning of a merciless comeback? Clara had always believed in fairy tales. Even in her late 20s, she cherished small gestures of kindness and the idea of pure love. Perhaps that's why she had fallen so completely for Julian Vance, a billionaire property magnate in London. Outwardly, he was the picture of charm and generosity, a philanthropist who dazzled at charity galas. Tall, magnetic, and effortlessly confident, Julian had drawn her in like a moth to flame. They had married 2 years ago in a ceremony drenched in rose-gold elegance, crystal chandeliers glittering across an exclusive Cotswolds venue, the promise of forever hanging in the air. Now, Clara was in her 3rd trimester, carrying their first child, living what seemed like a dream, a grand country estate in Surrey, a lavish penthouse in Mayfair, endless luxuries, endless love, or so she believed. The warning signs had been there all along, faint but growing louder each month. Julian's trips had become more frequent. Dubai, New York, business expansions, he'd said. His phone calls grew private, his late nights longer. And every so often, a scent of perfume, one that wasn't hers, lingered faintly on his clothes. When she mentioned it, he laughed it off, blaming it on a colleague's wife who had hugged him. Each time she tried to press for more, he'd change the subject, disarming her with a compliment about her dress or her glow, and Clara, gentle, trusting Clara, believed him. Until one cold afternoon, Julian had left his tablet unlocked on the coffee table. He was always so careful, always guarded. But that evening, as Clara sat waiting for dinner, a notification pinged. A new email. Subject, "Your purchase at Mayfair Jewels is ready." Her pulse quickened. Mayfair Jewels. The name itself shimmered with prestige. She tried to calm herself, telling her mind it was probably a surprise gift, for her or perhaps the baby. Hands trembling, she opened it. "Dear Mr. Vance, your personalized diamond necklace is complete. Please visit our Bond Street flagship to collect it. Platinum chain. 2-carat center diamond. Engraving. Forever in my heart." Clara froze. Her thoughts raced. Could it be for her? Their anniversary was 2 days away. But the engraving? It didn't sound like Julian. He never called her that. His terms of endearment were different. My shining star. My light. Forever in my heart sounded foreign. A chill swept over her. She didn't confront him. Not yet. She would wait. Watch. The next morning, Julian left early, saying he had a meeting in London. Clara lay still until the door clicked shut, then got up, determination coursing through her. She needed to know the truth. Driving into the city, her pulse hammered against her ribs. The streets blurred as Mayfair came into view, elegant, pristine, and cruelly beautiful. When she arrived, Mayfair Jewels shimmered beneath the London sun, its windows glinting with cold perfection. A man in a crisp suit welcomed her. "I'm here about a personalized necklace purchased under Julian Vance's name." He typed, glanced up, and smiled. "Ah, Mr. Vance, it's a beautiful piece. We were expecting him, but if you're Mrs. Vance, You may inspect it." Clara swallowed and forced herself steady as he opened the velvet box. The necklace inside took her breath away. She leaned forward to read the engraving on the back of the pendant. "Saraphina, forever in my heart." The floor seemed to drop away. Saraphina, not her name. She clenched her hands to hide the tremor and closed the box slowly. Making a scene would hand Julian the upper hand. "It's gorgeous," she managed through a strained smile. "I'll let him collect it." She left the boutique and stumbled down the pavement to a quiet alcove. Her worst fears stood confirmed. The necklace was for Saraphina. Before Julian, Clara had been fierce. Someone who believed that against injustice you didn't sob, you fought. Now, hurt and furious, a different fire kindled inside her. The baby shifted as if reminding her of stakes beyond her own heartbreak. This was no longer only about her. It was about the child she would raise. She thought of Naomi, an old friend turned private investigator. She needed undeniable proof of Julian's affair. If divorce came, leverage would be essential to secure her baby's future. If you were Clara, would you confront Julian that instant, or build a quiet case in secret? Tell us your plan in the comments. Naomi met Clara at an unassuming cafe in central London. Leather jacket, sharp gaze. Naomi listened as Clara recounted the distance, the excuses, and the Mayfair jewels confirmation. Naomi nodded and laid out a tactic. A small, discreet team would shadow Julian, chronicle his movements, and capture incontrovertible evidence of him with Saraphina. The days that followed were exhausting. Clara kept up appearances, trying not to dwell on what Naomi's surveillance might reveal. Julian stayed affable but aloof. One evening, while reading, a text from Naomi flashed up. "He's at the Savoy with her. Details soon." Her heart lurched. Minutes later, Naomi sent clear photos. Julian in an elevator, arm looped with a striking brunette. Then the pair entering a suite. The woman had the tall, model-like presence Naomi labeled as Saraphina Hayes. Clara's first impulse was to barge into the hotel, but the child inside cautioned restraint. Without a plan, Julian's denials would be smooth. So she waited. When Julian returned the next day, she greeted him with a tired smile. "Working late again?" she asked, casual. "Yes," he said. "These clients are driving me mad." He offered a lukewarm hug, a quick kiss to the cheek, and went to bed. Clara slept little that night. A detail from Naomi's snapshots nagged at her. Julian carried a small turquoise-blue bag stamped Mayfair jewels, undeniable proof the necklace had been with him. Over the next week, Clara kept her composure. Naomi's dossier grew. Receipts for lavish dinners, spa visits, all charged to Julian's corporate card. Each new document cut deeper, but it also steeled her resolve. She recalled something crucial. Julian's empire, heavy in property development across Manchester, depended on a tangled web of offshore companies and tax structures. His fortune might be more brittle than its public sheen suggested. A scandal could unravel everything. She arranged to meet Edward, a lawyer connected to Julian who apparently still valued fairness, at a private club in Greenwich. Edward listened without interruption. "Are you sure you want to go to war?" he asked softly. Divorces get ugly when vast sums and hidden structures are involved. Clara's jaws set. "I'm sure. I need to secure our future. I won't settle for a payout. He must feel the damage he's caused. I want him to learn a lesson he never forgets." If this level of betrayal has struck a chord, and you want to witness how the revenge unfolds, subscribe now so you don't miss the rest of this epic tale, and share the video with a friend who needs a reminder that lies always surface. One night, Naomi called again. "You won't believe what I found. I ran a background check on Saraphina Hayes. She used to try acting, then vanished after getting involved with older, wealthy men. She's been tied to several paternity disputes. She's a professional gold digger." The news fanned Clara's fury. Not only was her husband unfaithful, he'd been duped by a con. She needed a strategy. She asked Naomi to dig into Julian's business affairs. Within days, Naomi delivered a knockout blow. Julian had forged signatures and manipulated zoning permits to speed a Manchester development. Actions that weren't clean, and which, if exposed, could trigger investigations or charges. Clara's eyes flashed at how reckless he'd been. She chose a two-pronged plan. First, she would expose Julian's affair to friends and family to ruin his personal standing. Second, she would discreetly leak the planning fraud to potential business allies to spark panic. At the same time, she'd give Julian a chance to propose a settlement that would secure her child's future for life. If he refused, she would open the floodgates. To set the scene, Clara arranged an elaborate dinner at their Surrey estate, ostensibly to celebrate the baby's imminent arrival, inviting key partners and their wives. Julian, unsuspecting, played the perfect host. Midway through the meal, Clara rose to make a toast. With a warm smile, she began, "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this moment. Motherhood has taught me so much already, especially about the value of honesty and trust." She let the words hang and watched Julian's smile falter. "So, let's raise a glass to new beginnings. May they be free of secrets and built on truth." The next morning, Julian cornered her, jaw tight. "What was that toast about?" he demanded. Clara answered with a calm face. "Just reflections on marriage, trust, and the future." "Why?" He narrowed his eyes. "Are you hiding something from me? You're being paranoid. Maybe it's the hormones. Stop using my pregnancy as an excuse. I'm not stupid, Julian. Are you having an affair?" His gaze flicked away. "Of course not," he said finally, voice thin. "I love you." She scoffed. "You're lying." Then she walked out. In the days that followed, Clara set the second phase in motion. She told Edward to quietly circulate the planning fraud details to a carefully chosen contact. At the same time, she handed Julian a written ultimatum, a postnuptial agreement granting her full custody of their child, substantial financial compensation, and ownership of the Saraphina home. 2 days later, Julian returned furious, waving the sealed envelope. "What is this? You're threatening me," he barked. "I know about Saraphina Hayes," Clara said evenly. "I know about the Mayfair jewels necklace. I know about your nights at the Savoy. I have pictures, Julian." For a moment, his face drained. "You've been spying on me." "I'm protecting myself and our child," she answered. "You left me no choice. Sign this and give me everything I'm asking, or I will release the evidence of your affair to your partners, your family, and the press." She pressed a manila folder into his hands. Inside were the documents on the planning fraud. "You're blackmailing me," he whispered. "I'm offering you a choice. Make me whole or face the consequences." That night, he refused to sign and stormed out. Hours later, Naomi messaged, "Julian's at Saraphina's flat. They had a massive fight. She kicked him out. Something about money." Clara felt a grim, private satisfaction. Saraphina had sensed Julian's instability and fled when the money smelled risky. The next morning, Clara found Julian asleep on the living room sofa, his tie loosened, his suit rumpled. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Julian's voice was rough, trembling with rage. "My investors are backing out of a major development. They heard about legal irregularities." "Then sign the agreement," Clara said coldly. "You're trying to destroy me," he shouted, slamming his fist against the countertop. "You already destroyed something far more precious, our marriage," she fired back. "Do you want to talk about ruin? What about what you've done to our child?" Just when Clara thought the chaos might settle, her phone rang. "Hello? Is this Clara Reed?" a voice asked. "Yes. Who's speaking?" "It's Lady Helen Vance," came the reply. Clara's tone hardened. "Why are you calling me?" "I thought you'd want to know what Julian's been up to." "We fought," Lady Helen continued, her voice edged with disbelief. "Your husband told me he was leaving you, that you were cold, controlling, and only married him for money. He said he wanted to start a new life with me. Then I discovered half his promises were lies. Now I suspect his business is collapsing. If there's a way to bring him down together, I'm in. Clara didn't trust Saraphina, but this call made one truth painfully clear. Julian was ready to discard her and deny his child. To add pressure, she decided to involve someone Julian couldn't manipulate, Lady Helen Vance, his own mother. Lady Helen, elegant and composed, had always adored Clara. When Clara confided everything, the affair, the necklace, the hotel, Lady Helen listened in stunned silence. "I cannot believe this," she murmured. "You are carrying his child. How could he be so cruel?" Then she straightened. "He is my son, but I won't excuse him. If you need me, I'll stand beside you. I won't let him destroy your life or my grandchild's future." Days later, Clara's plan reached its breaking point. She sent Julian the ultimatum via email, complete with photos and documentation. The reply came swiftly. Julian arrived home, looking defeated. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "I'm listening. I'll sign. But you have to keep everything quiet. I can't lose my company, my reputation. Please, Clara, I'm begging you." Clara opened the folder and pointed to the signature line. "Then sign." Julian hesitated only a moment before his trembling hand met the page. As the pen scratched, a strange pang went through her, an echo of the woman who had once loved him. "I'll have my lawyer file this," she said coldly. "If you break a single term, everything goes public." He nodded faintly. "Understood." He reached for her wrist. "Clara, She pulled away. "Don't. It's too late. You should have thought about your family before you betrayed it." Though the papers were signed, the air between them grew heavy. Rumors spread quickly through both social and corporate circles. Investors withdrew, and Julian's empire began to crumble. Saraphina Hayes, ever the opportunist, disappeared without a trace. One afternoon, Clara was in the nursery folding baby clothes when Julian appeared in the doorway, pale and exhausted. "We need to talk about money," he said. "My accounts are frozen. The leaked permit files triggered a federal investigation. Clara, I'm losing everything." "You should have considered that before you broke your vows," she replied evenly. "I know I deserve this," he whispered. "But what about the baby? Our son shouldn't pay for my mistakes." "I've made sure he won't," she said firmly. "The post-nuptial agreement guarantees his future. The choice of grace was yours, Julian, and you threw it away." As the final weeks of her pregnancy passed, Clara decided she didn't want Julian in the delivery room. The thought of him holding her hand was unbearable. Her mother-in-law, Lady Helen, gently advised her, "Remember, someday your son will ask about his father. How you handle this moment may shape how he sees himself." A few days before her due date, Clara's water broke. Panicked and alone, she called Naomi, who rushed her to the hospital. She didn't call Julian. Lady Helen arrived soon after, taking her hand. After long hours of labor, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The moment she heard his cry, her world realigned. She named him Arthur. Moments later, Julian burst into the room. He must have heard from Lady Helen. Clara turned protectively, shielding her child. "You weren't invited," she said softly. Julian froze, staring from a distance. In the days that followed, his once mighty empire collapsed completely under legal scrutiny. He lost major contracts, and the media soon caught wind of the fraud allegations. His name became synonymous with billionaire arrogance and downfall. With Edward's help, Clara filed for divorce. Thanks to the post-nuptial agreement, she secured a substantial settlement, retaining the Surrey estate and enough funds to ensure Arthur's future. One evening, Saraphina Hayes resurfaced in the tabloids. She had sold her story to a gossip magazine, exposing her affair with Julian and revealing photos of the Mayfair jewels necklace. The scandal painted Julian as a reckless philanderer who had abandoned his pregnant wife. The public humiliation was complete. Clara poured her focus into motherhood. The ache of betrayal still lingered, but Arthur's laughter was her balm. When Julian visited, he was a shadow of the man he once was, quiet, humbled, broken. Almost. A year after Arthur's birth, Clara sat on the lawn watching her son toddle across the grass. Her marriage had ended in betrayal, yet it had given her the greatest gift of all, her son. The scar it left behind reminded her of her strength, her endurance, and the depth of her love. Her revenge had been ruthless, but it was also survival. And from that storm, she had emerged stronger, shaping a future entirely her own. Clara's life began to blossom again. Her interior design studio, Renaissance, gained recognition among Surrey's elite. Arthur's steady steps and cheerful giggles became the rhythm of her days. Julian, meanwhile, drifted further into obscurity. He kept up with his visits to Arthur, but always with the air of a defeated man, a ghost of the arrogant magnate he used to be. Julian was living out his karma. But was financial ruin enough? Punishment? Should Clara continue to guard her heart in silent resentment, or had she already gone far enough? One cold autumn morning, Clara received an unexpected call. "Mrs. Reed, I'm David, the cafe owner near Mr. Vance's old flat in London." Clara's pulse quickened. "Yes? Has something happened?" "It's Mr. Vance. He hasn't been to the cafe in 2 days. That's unusual. He's here daily for coffee and Wi-Fi. I stopped by his apartment and he's very ill, feverish, barely able to move. He tried calling for help, but he told me not to call an ambulance. He just kept saying your name. Said you were the only one who could help." The words struck Clara like lightning. Her first instinct was cold indifference. He had made his choices, and now he was facing their consequences. But then she thought of Lady Helen, who had once stood by her, and of Arthur, who would one day ask about the kind of woman his mother was. Duty, not affection, propelled her next steps. Leaving Arthur with his nanny, Clara boarded the first flight to London. When she entered Julian's small, disheveled apartment, the smell of sickness and neglect filled the air. Julian lay in bed, pale, drenched in sweat, barely conscious. This was more than a common illness. Without hesitation, she called an ambulance. As they waited, Clara glanced around the dim room, chaotic, lifeless. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of their wedding beside one of Arthur. On the back of the wedding picture, in Julian's familiar handwriting, were the words, "The day I had everything and lost it all to my own stupidity." A wave of emotion washed over her, not anger, not revenge, but sorrow. His punishment was clear, to live haunted by the ruins of what he had destroyed. If Clara's choice to help Julian moved you, show it with a like and share your thoughts on the power of grace. Your support helps us tell more stories that explore the thin line between vengeance and forgiveness. At the hospital, Julian was diagnosed with a severe infection. He remained unconscious for a full day. Clara stayed by his bedside, not as a wife, but as a guardian, making sure he received the best care possible, if only because he was Arthur's father. When Julian finally opened his eyes, they met Clara's. His expression was a mix of confusion, weakness, and disbelief. "Clara." "What are you doing here?" he whispered. "I brought you to the hospital." "You were very ill," she replied, her tone calm, steady, stripped of emotion. "I thought you'd erased me from your life completely," he said, voice trembling. "I deserved that." "I didn't do this for you, Julian," she said, meeting his gaze firmly. "I did it for Arthur and for myself. I'm not the kind of person who leaves someone to die no matter what's happened. My peace doesn't come from your pain, it comes from my conscience." Julian closed his eyes, and a single tear slipped down his temple. "Thank you. And I'm sorry, Clara, truly sorry. Every day I see what I lost and I know it was all my fault." Clara simply nodded. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. Her revenge had ended long ago, when she decided to stand tall and rebuild her life. Helping him now wasn't an act of reconciliation. It was her final step toward complete emotional freedom. Over the next few weeks, Julian began to recover. Clara arranged for in-home care but didn't stay by his side. Still, she didn't abandon him entirely. On her last hospital visit before returning to Surrey, she handed him a small envelope. Inside was Edward's business card and a handwritten note. "When you're strong enough, call him. He can help you rebuild, find work. I'm not giving you money. I'm giving you the chance to show our son that you're capable of standing again. Vengeance destroys. True power builds." Then she left London behind, returning to Surrey, to her thriving studio, Renaissance, and the peaceful life she had created. She had won, not only against Julian's betrayal, but against the bitterness that once threatened to consume her. She had used rage as fuel for her ascent, but grace as the legacy she chose to leave behind. The cycle of revenge was over, replaced by the quiet strength of redemption. Clara's justice had been Julian's downfall, but her mercy became her own liberation. What do you think of this final confrontation? Did Clara handle Saraphina's betrayal the right way? Leave your thoughts on this story of empowerment and share it with someone who needs a reminder of their inner strength. Epilogue: The Unbreakable Legacy and the New Dawn. Welcome back. You've witnessed Clara's ruthless revenge and her final act of grace. Now see where life takes her 2 years later. Hit like if you believe a woman's true worth lies in the empire she builds for herself. 2 years after signing the divorce papers and performing her last act of mercy at the London hospital, Clara Reed's life had settled into a luminous balance. Her interior design studio, Renaissance, meaning rebirth, had blossomed into a celebrated brand. No longer serving only Surrey's elite, her work now extended to luxury resort projects along the Cornwall coast and the Atha Islands. Clara's aesthetic had become a symbol of understated sophistication, timeless elegance infused with warmth. Much like the woman herself, every new contract wasn't merely business success. It was proof of her resilience, of the talent Julian once dismissed. Arthur, now a lively and curious little boy, filled her days with laughter and purpose. Clara devoted herself fully to his upbringing, determined to give him the stability and love she had fought to preserve. As for Julian Vance, Clara's intervention had kept him from complete ruin. He had reached out to Edward and slowly began rebuilding his career, taking small consulting projects. Gone was the arrogance of a billionaire. What remained was a man humbled by life, working quietly to redeem himself. He kept up his visits with Arthur diligently. Their relationship grew out of a newfound respect, an unspoken acknowledgement of the past, and a quiet commitment to doing better. Over time, Clara realized that true forgiveness had taken root, not through apologies but through Julian's steady actions. Lady Helen Vance, her former mother-in-law, remained a constant presence in Clara's life. The two women shared an affectionate bond, strengthened by their mutual love for Arthur. Lady Helen often visited, bringing gifts and stories, and proudly telling anyone who would listen about her former daughter-in-law's remarkable success. She had even been one of Renaissance's earliest investors, never missing a chance to boast about Clara's accomplishments. One cool summer afternoon, as Clara returned to her Surrey estate from a client meeting, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Julian. Subject: Arthur's drawing. Clara, I just wanted to say I put up the new display stand for Arthur's drawings in my flat. Thank you for giving me the chance. I know this isn't about money. It's about proving that I can still be a good father. You taught me the most valuable lesson of all, and I'm grateful. Clara smiled faintly as she read it. The revenge had long ended. The bitterness had dissolved. She had turned her pain into power and found the one thing no one could take from her: true autonomy and peace. Through the window, she saw Arthur racing across the lawn beneath the golden afternoon light. She had won, not by destroying Julian, but by building something lasting and beautiful without him. Saraphina Hayes and David, the London cafe owner, had faded into the past like distant storms. They were merely faint echoes in the story of Clara's rebirth. Clara Reed, the woman once dismissed as ordinary and replaceable, had become a symbol of resilience. She was living proof that being underestimated is the perfect chance to rediscover your own worth. CTAs. This marks the final conclusion to Clara's story of revenge and redemption. What do you think Julian's greatest lesson was? Honesty or loyalty? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to support more Renaissance stories. 2 years later, the quiet triumph of Clara Reed was complete. She had achieved a level of fulfillment that far surpassed the shallow luxury of her old life. Her company, Renaissance, now operated out of a beautifully restored building in Knightsbridge, a poetic irony, given Julian's former world. Clara's days were filled with purpose, meetings with trusted partners, bursts of creative inspiration, and afternoons spent playing with Arthur. Her life was calm, steady, and rich in meaning. She had found peace, not in vengeance, but in balance and self-worth. Julian Vance's story had shifted too. Once a symbol of arrogance and downfall, he had become a man quietly rebuilding. He took pride in his consulting work, devoting himself to honest effort. The lesson Clara had left him with, that integrity is the only true wealth, had taken root. But what of Saraphina Hayes, the woman who once delighted in the destruction of another's marriage? Saraphina had learned too late that beauty and ambition were not enough in a world that no longer admired her. After selling her story to the tabloids and exposing her own greed, she became a social pariah. The elite circles she once courted now viewed her name with disdain. Every potential benefactor remembered the scandal, the lies, the Mayfair necklace. Shunned and desperate, Saraphina left London, eventually taking a quiet job in a small European city, her dreams of luxury shattered. Clara heard of Saraphina's fate through Naomi, her ever-loyal investigator, who occasionally followed up on unfinished threads. She's gone. Clara, Naomi reported one afternoon, no longer a threat. The market for beautiful opportunists is always smaller than they think. Clara felt a brief flicker of pity, then peace. Justice had unfolded on its own. Saraphina had been stripped of the only currency she truly valued, status and illusion. On a bright spring day, Clara attended a prestigious design award ceremony. Renaissance had just won Designer of the Year. Standing on the grand stage, holding the crystal trophy, Clara's smile was radiant and unforced. As she looked out at the glittering crowd, many of whom had once whispered about her betrayal and downfall, she felt no bitterness, only pride. She had risen beyond every rumor, every lie, every shadow of her past. She knew the platinum necklace had never been the true treasure of the story. The real treasure was the foundation she had rebuilt from the wreckage of her old life. Now she was free, financially, professionally, and most importantly, emotionally. The story of the pregnant wife who rose to become the Queen of Renaissance had reached its end. Her betrayal had been her beginning, her son was her purpose, and her grace, her final, unshakable victory. This marks the true conclusion of Clara's saga. Thank you for following her journey of ruthless revenge and ultimate redemption. If Clara's strength inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and tell us, what lesson did you take from the downfall of Julian and Saraphina?
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.